Right, so you probably clicked on this video because you're kind of cooked for GCSEs and you want to know if you can really save them in the 4 months you have left. Well, just know that if you look in on what I'm saying for these next few minutes, I'll show you how I got these grades at GCSE and how you can really save yours in these next 4 months. Make sure to comment down below if you want to see the monthly countdown towards GCSEs from this new year onwards to your exams. And just so you know, these tips are useful for all years, and so even if you're not year 11, you'll definitely find this useful. The first thing you're going to need to do to save your grades for this summer is to implement a consistent study routine. And by this, I don't mean those blocked out timetables where you've planned every minute of your day and you know exactly what you're doing at all times. Those can be good, but the issue with those is that they really lack flexibility. If one thing happens and suddenly you can't work for the whole day, you're just working on this backlog and you don't give yourself any sort of time and flexibility, and it's really difficult to be able to do the work at the time you always set it. And another really important thing that these timetables don't consider is Parkinson's law. In simple terms, this is just the idea of procrastination. If you give yourself long to do something, you are going to take long to do it. And so I think a much better way of timetabling is using retrospective revision timetables. And rather than blocking out time for what you need to do, trying to predict how long you think it's going to take to do something, set it as tasks instead. When you do this, it means that you're more incentivized to try and finish it so you can actually go and do something you want rather than studying. Because when you block out certain time periods, like 2 hours, you're really just trying to predict how long it's going to take you to do a task. It might not actually be a 2-hour task. This gives yourself the chance to sort of be distracted and not be fully concentrated because you know you can easily finish this in 2 hours, when rather you could quickly do it in 30 minutes and then go do what you actually want for the rest of the time. And retrospective revision timetables are when you're specifically going over topics that you struggled on rather than equally studying everything. I have a video earlier in the channel if you want to go check that out. I'll link it up here. So finish watching this video, then watch that. And the next most important thing you're going to need to consider when thinking about revising for your GCSEs this year is going to be resources. With the amount of time left, do you really think it's a good idea to be sitting down and making these lovely handwritten notes that you think really look really good and sort of spending your time trying to make them look perfect rather than doing actual revision that's actually going to help? What happens is a lot of people make a full set of notes for the whole course and it's all good, but then they can't remember anything in the exam because they haven't done the effective revision methods or used effective resources, and all of a sudden, yeah, you've got these nice notes, but what do you get in the exam? And so I think the most effective resource you should be using is active recall in the form of flashcards. Now there are so many different apps that can help you with this, whether it be Anki, Quizlet or Gizmo, so really just use what you think is best for you and what you find easiest. Although naturally, I would recommend Anki because I do think it was part of the reason as to why I got the grades that I did. But really, what you need to decide is whether you're going to be making your own resources or using somebody else's. With 4 months left, that is still a lot of time and a lot can change. And so I do think you have the time to be making your own resources. And I think there is a lot of benefit in this because you get exposure to everything in the syllabus, even perhaps you weren't listening in class or you're just messing around. But now you actually get to see it, and it makes it a lot easier to memorize because you've written it out yourself. Although, if you're not a fan of making your own resources, there are so many good sets of flashcards available for free on Quizlet and Anki. I myself have my AQA GCSE Triple Science set available for free, so comment down below if you want access to those flashcards and I'll get you sorted. And essentially, by using these flashcard methods, this will be the perfect way to cement this information into your long-term memory, so that the stuff you revise now, you'll be able to remember when it comes to your exams in May and June. Right, the next really important resource I need to talk about are essay plans. And I fully agree that these are the most effective way to revise for these essay subjects at GCSE, your history, RE, English literature and those sort of things. Now this is because in these sort of subjects, they can only really ask what's on their specification. They can't go really far-fetched with their questions. So it is quite easy to predict what is going to come up based on what's come up previously and what hasn't come up yet. You do this by going through the book, going through the specification and finding every single major theme and character that could possibly be asked in the exam, and then make a grade 9 essay plan on every single one of those. Another thing that's really good about this is that it becomes really easy to reuse content for many different characters and themes. And so if you're able to link as many characters and themes into one paragraph as possible, you find that you're able to use that same paragraph or pretty much a whole essay for multiple different themes. This makes it really effective in being able to memorize grade 9 plans. And this is what I did to achieve a high grade 9 in English literature and language. And speaking on that, if you want access to grade 9 Romeo and Juliet, Frankenstein and Journey's End essay plans, comment down below and I'll see what I can do for you. Once you have these essay plans ready, just know you've done the hard part. You'll be really surprised to find out how much your brain can retain from simply reading through an essay plan or briefly making one. What I used personally was blurting on a whiteboard every paragraph that I'd planned out and go through them a few times. And because I said you can create these overlapping paragraphs, I didn't really have that many before I knew something I could write for every single essay that could possibly come up. What I did closer to the exam was just blurt out my line of arguments or the broad structure of each paragraph, and I knew that I was safe for any question that came up. So I really think that's what you should be doing for these essay subjects. Now, aside from the essay subjects, we're moving on to past paper questions. This is the most important thing for triple science. This is what gets you the grade 9s in the sciences, because knowing all the content is well and good, but if you don't have what the mark scheme says, you're not getting the marks. And so what you're going to do here is, once you've nailed down all the content using your flashcard method, you're going to go to websites such as Physics and Maths Tutor or Maths Genie and go through all the past paper questions. Now, a good structured way to do this so that you don't have to waste time on topics you're continuously getting right would be the past paper method, which I actually made a video just on, so check that out if you're interested. But summarized, that is where you go through a past paper and then note down how you made each mistake and then do past paper questions on each of those mistakes. By doing this, you really narrow down on your weaknesses. You're able to cover the whole specification really quickly and effectively because you've only focused on what you're not very good at. Now, another important tip you must take from past paper questions is that when you've made a mistake and you find yourself making that mistake on and on again, you either turn this into a question bank of things you find difficult or put it in a flashcard after going back and rewatching and understanding the content so that you ensure you're not making the same mistakes again, because it's really annoying to spend time revising and then just find yourself making the same mistakes on and on again. And the last point on resources is using the specification. It's really crazy how so many students don't know about the specification and how it's the best resource for revision, because it tells you everything you can possibly be tested on. There won't be anything on your exam that isn't on the specification, and so theoretically, if you know everything on the specification, then you're going to get 100%. Obviously, it doesn't really work like that. But really, if you're able to use the specification and narrow down every single bullet point, edXL specifications are really good for this. You essentially have a checklist of everything you need to know for the exam. I think it's a really good idea to be really familiar with the specifications of the subjects you take, making sure you know what point you're in class and what you've revised, ticking off as you go through, just so you make sure there's no gaps in your knowledge and that nothing will surprise you in the exam. Well, now we're going to quickly touch on the optimal way to revise, and this is using active recall and spaced repetition. Active recall being testing yourself, retrieving information from your brain. That uncomfortable feeling when you're really trying to remember something and you know you've kind of got it and you're trying to piece it together is really where the benefit comes in. So using flashcards is a really good way to ensure that you're constantly testing yourself. And then it's spaced repetition. Just do spaced repetition to ensure that you're not forgetting what you're learning. You need to ensure that you go through at regular intervals just to make sure that it really goes into your long-term memory so that you'll remember what you learn now for your exams later on. The next very important thing I need to touch on is taking rests, especially at GCSE where the exams really aren't that difficult and you can afford to be taking a lot of time off resting and not studying that much. And so ensure that you're taking regular breaks throughout the day, doing what you like to do and not constantly studying to avoid burnout, because 4 months is a long period of time and you can't really fully sprint the whole way. So ensure you have a really structured way of revising. Your timetable and your daily routine allows for having fun things you like to do. Really, you don't want to study if you have no incentive to do so. You should be studying and looking towards something fun later in the evening or something that really takes your mind off work, because you don't want to be constantly thinking about it. Alright, so thank you for watching this video. With 4 months left, I think this covers everything you should be doing and everything you need to know to secure those top grades in the summer. Thank you for 4,000 subscribers, and make sure to comment down below any improvements you have for the videos or what you'd like to see on the channel, just so I can make these as valuable as possible. Thanks for watching.